There for Care is brought to you by CareScout with the goal of sharing real-life conversations about aging care. Views expressed on this program are the speaker's own. We do not provide medical, legal, tax, financial, or other professional advice. Always talk to your own professional advisors for advice tailored to your needs.
Welcome back to There for Care by CareScout, a podcast all about navigating aging care, whether for yourself or a loved one. My name is Katie Boyles, and our guest today is Jessica Donahue. She is a licensed clinical social worker who specializes in dementia care, and today we're going to talk about the myths and realities about normal aging or dementia. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, to kick it off, we're going to talk about why is it so difficult to understand the difference between normal aging and early signs of dementia?
Yeah, so I think honestly, a lot of it is anxiety. I think that a lot of people, as they age, they feel changes in their cognition, which is super normal as we age. And so understanding the difference between what of those changes could be signs of cognitive decline versus what of them are just a normal part of our journey as we age can cause people a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of myths out there. So it's really nice to have a few minutes to sort of talk about what's typical aging and what maybe is something you might want to red flag for yourself or talk to a doctor about in the future.
And can we start with what some of those myths might be?
Yeah, so I think every time we misplace our keys, look at the actress on TV and we can't remember her name, don't know what day of the week it is, it's very natural, I think, maybe to start to panic and think, oh, I'm slipping, this is it.
What should someone do to know the difference between those?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of sort of, we can go through some examples of different areas of our cognition where you could talk about what it looks like in normal aging versus maybe what it might look like as someone has a cognitive decline.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So, in terms of memory, which is, I think, what everybody thinks of when we think of dementia, first thing comes to mind is your memory. Misplacing items does become more common as we age, just as we do. But however, normally you would expect to be able to retrace your steps. So you go to the bowl, your keys aren't there, and you start to think to yourself, okay, but yesterday I went to the grocery store, I had my arms full when I came in, and I put them down on the counter, and you go and you find them, right? It's when you misplace items frequently, unable to trace your steps. You may even have a feeling like somebody may be stealing things or misplacing things on purpose because it's happening so often and you have no recollection of where these items might be. That is something that you might, want to make somebody like a physician aware of.
And so that's memory. Are there other areas that we should maybe be looking out for?
Yeah, I think a lot of people too kind of think about time and orientation. So as we age, many of us retire, it becomes really common to maybe not remember if it's Wednesday or Thursday or Saturday because all of your days may look a little bit the same, and having a little bit of that may be really normal. However, being really disoriented to the season, to the year, that is something that could be more concerning if it happens on a regular basis.
And are there other areas that someone should be looking for?
Yeah, I think as in terms of like your self-identity, your identity as a person, that's not something that necessarily would change as you age. You do see people with dementia, their core identity is the same, but they may find them forgetting their personal history and things like that a little bit more. That would be something to be aware of.
And so if someone's forgetting that, how can you help support your loved one?
Yeah, so I think if you're noticing these changes in a loved one, if you're feeling a little bit concerned about some of those things, maybe writing down some of the examples that you've seen so that you can share them with a doctor could be really helpful. Speaking to the person gently, asking them how they're feeling. Chances are they've noticed changes before anybody else, but they may be feeling scared. So letting them know that you're there for them, you love them, and you want to support them is going to be the primary thing.
And so we hear about orientation. Can you explain a little about what that is?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So orientation is like sort of knowing where you are in the world, not just in terms of place, but in terms of time and other things. So, it's not just knowing the date, it's knowing the season and the year and the building that we're in and knowing kind of current events around us. So it's usually person, place, time, and self.
And what are some examples with relation to judgment? that you can go through.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's very natural for us all to maybe forget to pay a bill once in a while or put the wrong account number in, all of that. But if you see someone who's repeatedly, not getting their bills paid, maybe throwing them out, things like that, that kind of judgment and sort of coordination of your day-to-day life skills could be concerning. We also see, like forgetting that you've turned the stove on, leaving the water running where it can flood a bathtub or something like that. Those can be concerning as well. That happens regularly.
Now, for our listeners, if somebody is hearing this and they start to think, my goodness, I should start to check on a loved one, where would you recommend that they go?
Yeah, so your first stop would always be your primary care doctor. Come armed with some examples, some things that you're concerned about, and talk to them. And then, they'll help you take it from there. It's also really important to understand that dementia is an umbrella term, right? I always use the same example. It's a little bit like saying Protestant, right? There's a lot of things that happen under that term of cognitive loss and cognitive decline. And so understanding what may be going on, it could be a lot of things, many things which are not necessarily permanent either. So a lot of people don't go to the doctor because of fear. And so I always really want to encourage people to go and to communicate and talk to their doctors because you never know what it may be.
Yes. So it sounds like there's a lot that could be happening at a moment where you don't know if you're just aging or it might be dementia. Are there any top things that you want people to take away from this?
I think that the top thing that I really want people to take away is that as we age, it is normal for us to have more forgetfulness and things like that. That's very normal. If you are feeling concerned, if something has raised a red flag for you, I think the most important thing is to speak to your loved one, if it's a loved one you're concerned about, or if it's yourself, your loved ones, as well as your doctor.
Which is such a great reminder that we are all going to age one day.
Yes.
And it's better to just be informed and to talk openly about it.
Absolutely, yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today to talk about the myths and the realities as someone is aging. Thank you for joining There for Care. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you the next time.